Okie dokie.
No time like the present, Chris.
I
There's
welcome.
no time like the present.
Yeah, no time like the present. Let's
Go
get
for it.
rolling. All right. I appreciate everybody joining us today. We've got a good crowd today, and I think we'll probably have a few others on. Had a lot of good response. I did reach out to quite a few people and tell them about the networking event, and more than anything else, I wanted to have plenty of people here who would interact with what we're going to be talking about today, which events is basically a networking masterclass. I hope that ends up what it is, in fact, but very interactive. So I want anyone that has anything to say or like to interject anything as we're going down through some of this, just to open the mic and just go ahead and jump right in, because I don't mind being interrupted during any of the presentations. That's the reason we do this, is so everybody has a chance to say what's on their mind or get questions answered, and all grow together. The local chamber influencers, as everybody knows, is the way, for us to develop prospects without really, you got to work at it, but it's a whole lot easier than it is to go get on the phone and cold call, or drop by a business and drop in cold, and not really have a good network of people behind you that recommend you and are on your team anytime somebody mentions the kind of work that you do. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen, and so we can get into this in more detail. Let's see here. Boom. Yeah. Okay. Everybody see my screen now? Are we in good shape? Got anybody say yes? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right. Thanks. All right.
Yes, we can see you now. Took a minute there.
I didn't pop up right away. I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Networking in general actually is sometimes has a bad name, and sometimes is completely misunderstood. Some people consider it to be kind of a dog and pony type of gathering, and some people are nervous about going to it because they're not sure what to expect or how to approach the people, or what to say. What if somebody asks me a question I can't answer? What do I say then? But it's the way to develop your entire business through not only your network of people that you meet at various events, and of course we focus on the chamber being the way to meet them, but there are many other networking type organizations that are out there. But anytime you are developing your network, and let's say you have a network of even, I don't know, let's just say 10 people that you've gotten to know and have somewhat of a passing relationship with through the networking process. Guess what? Those people also have 10 people that they know in the process. So if you know 10, you have access to 100 people in a network that continues to grow uh, exponentially, if you think of it in that fashion. So the it said, kind of a study went on. It says 50% of a country's intellectual capital is relational assets, and 75% of an individual's capital is their relationships. That that's pretty strong numbers right there if you think about it. If you've got 75% of your business partially, if not completely, depending on who you know, then you're missing the boat entirely. And people don't even think of it in this way. I have very few times when I talk about networking do they consider the power, especially in this regard. So start on your networking with what you most want to get from it right now. If it's if you want to develop a local business, then you network in a certain way. If you want to sell a specific product, then you'll network in a different way. You have to decide what it is you want to get from your networking, and then target the networking process or the networking groups that you want to be a part of. Of course, I'll keep repeating myself like a broken record, but when you're part of the Chamber of Commerce, you have a complete mix of all kinds of businesses. So it's hard to miss when you know that most of the businesses in the community, a good portion of them nonetheless, are part of the chamber, and those are all prospects and targets for you, especially in the marketing business. Uh, Strengthening your network doesn't happen overnight. But once you're clear on what kind of network is needed, you can begin by providing others value before you need the resources. Now, we had a training last week called the Go Giver, which many of you were a part of. And this falls right into that particular area, saying you're going to provide value to others before you need help from them even. So it's a very much not a reciprocal process, but when you provide value to those people, then when something that you need comes up, they're going to be more than willing to help out. I don't care if it's just with a name of a business that may need a bot, for example, in Anthony's case, or if it's the name of a business that does overseas work. All those things are there if you just look for them. So you make your choices now to build the relationships that have value for the long term. There's much to be said. I'm going to say a little bit more about that and kind of relate it to a couple of other sessions we've had in the past. Say, Carl, do you have anything you want to add to this? What do you think about it so far? Okay. He says it's rock and roll time. Okay, good enough. All right.
Right. Well, I love teaching a class to first-time business owners on collecting business cards and making them your treasure because of the reference and relationship that develop from this networking. I also teach conventions are something that are at the top of my list because the convention, the association that you affiliate with, and I do always recommend anybody in business and any type of business find out the #1 association that they can join and go to those conventions and develop those relationships, and then come back with a stack of business cards with little notes that say, John's wife is Sally, they have 2 kids, and one of them's in college and one of them's an Army soldier. Just little personal remarks to remind you of who this person is. And by those networking developments that you put together, I'll give you an example. When my first business that I owned was a collection agency, and I joined the ACA, American Collectors Association, and I always found one thing that was worthwhile coming back from networking at the annual convention. There was always one thing that made the whole trip worthwhile. But I love the fact that as a newbie, I could go through my Rolodex, AKA now known as Outlook, and call upon those seasoned owners and say, I'm trying to do something, I'm trying to expand, I'm stuck on something, I've hit a wall. And they would take my phone call, even though they worked for this big company that was much, much bigger than my own. So the networking is extremely important. I don't care who you are and how much money you have, you still have a networking relationship that you can value and create new value. I'll give you an example. I don't know if I've told this before, but this one friend that I developed a relationship through cellular phones, when cellular phones were coming on strong, and we had so many tel companies across the country here, this gentleman was a business owner, and he was going through a tough time, and he was working 2 jobs to make ends meet, and he gave me a contact inside of this company, and last I looked, I have done over $1.2 million worth of business with this one business referral that I picked up from him. So that right there, I didn't have to pay for a lead, but I paid in my relationship development and having my ears open as to what I'm looking for. So there's it works.
Now, when you get those cards, and of course, that's, as I mentioned, there are many different ways to network, and a convention certainly are a great way. And I was certainly part of that many years ago. When you get those cards, do you normally follow up as soon as you get back with an email or phone call, or do you just, what do you do with those cards right away?
It depends. It depends on how the meeting went. If it was an after hours party that we were into and we hit it right off the bat, I might be contacting them in 2 weeks and saying, hey, you know what? When's the next time that we can meet up and golf? If it was a warm relationship, I would put it on my Outlook, and I use my Outlook tremendously to remind me to do tasks. I've got these, pretty decent sized companies, and I pick up the phone and I call Sally and say, hey, happy birthday. It's your son's first birthday today. And you know what? It's not soft soaping. It's sincere. And I made enough interest in knowing what her son's name is and whether the little guy was born overweight or underweight, or if there was any issues, or if he's a happy clam, whatever it is, because I have 2 boys myself, and I love children. So I space out those follow-ups depending upon how the relationship started, what kind of relationship we have, and where it's going.
Exactly. And the same thing happens when you're in a group, take it away from the convention type situation for a moment. But when you start networking with a group of any kind, and again, I'll focus on the chamber. When in the chamber, you get to know the people because you do see them quite often. And with that particular contact, the more you know about that individual and the more you know about his business, whether or not he'll ever do business with you or not, learn as much as you can about his business. Provide value where you can by, and we'll get into this a little bit later, provide value by maybe putting him in contact with someone that's in his industry, or it can be of service to him because you know them and you know that maybe that'll work out for him. So that's what's called being of value first, is serving them before you need them for you in the process. So thanks, Carl. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Glad to input.
Certainly, you can grow your network by attending formal activities like the conventions and large events like conventions, but also being an active member of the Chamber of Commerce. But think how to embed networking into your daily work as well. Most of you don't work in offices, but you're still out in the community and volunteering in a project type basis, whether it be plenty of opportunities to volunteer through the chamber, that's for sure. But in the community, there are other volunteer opportunities. And believe you me, when you get involved with any type of nonprofit or volunteer group, you're going to meet a whole bunch of folks, many of them in business, of course, many of them influential in the community, which doesn't hurt anything either. And oftentimes you're going to find yourself having a lot in common, especially if you're working on a specific volunteer project. Now, I know Bob has been involved in this kind of thing, and it's benefited him a great deal. Bob, talk about how when you get into volunteering, how much it helps in your networking ability.
Oh, it helps tremendously. And we kind of covered some of this before just a brief recap of how I got involved with the local chamber. So I approached them a couple of years ago to do a mobile app for them. And for various reasons, and it actually worked to my benefit, that the mobile app never went forward, but they had a need for other services. In this case, they needed their website redesigned. And I've got some WordPress skills, so fine, I jumped in there, helped them get a redesign on their website. That led to other things, kind of getting, again, raising your hand for those volunteer opportunities. And today I not only manage the site, I manage their social media, and we just rolled out a program within the last week that goes even deeper. That's a major benefit to the membership. Now, how did that new program come about? It's because they asked me if I could come up with something.
Yeah.
They wanted to drive value to the membership, and I volunteered to help them do that. So, if you have a skill, don't be afraid to raise your hand. The doors that it could potentially open for you are immense. I'm not going to get too far in the weeds on this because I know Chris has some upcoming discussions. It'll probably go further into this, but definitely raise your hand when you have a skill that could fill a need, because that will pay dividends in ways you couldn't possibly imagine.
I know we're talking about outside groups, but the same thing applies within our industry, doesn't it, Bob? As far as networking in our industry, I know that you accuse me sometimes of getting you involved in some of these things, other things than you might do with the Chamber of Commerce, but it goes beyond that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
this person does this other person does that. Let's get together. Let's talk about it. Let's share some ideas, or even Yvonne, for example. Yvonne, sometimes you and I get on and we'll share ideas and we'll test things together, right?
You're right. Yeah. And it's just nice to have that social support, especially when you're working home alone so much.
Yeah, especially with somebody in the industry that understands. And I know you're
right. We speak the same language. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You don't look at me like I'm from Mars.
And your network is growing rapidly now, which I'm sure makes you feel great.
Yeah.
I know Yvonne went to a big conference about 2 months ago, I guess it was by now, and met with some of the highfalutin guys in the business, and I've brought back a lot of good contacts from that, which I know she's using now. So I don't care if it's outside or inside in our industry. Do all you can to increase your network within the industry itself. And it doesn't matter if the person does the same thing you do. What difference does it make at all? If they do the same thing you do, that's even better, because you can even talk the same language even better. So never forget to scale your contacts within your own industry. The other thing that's important too is on the sheet, they're scheduling one-on-one meetings. Something I did when I started out with my company was using the chamber as the prime way of prospecting, and I found that it was quite helpful to find some of the top people in the chamber, and the people that had great businesses. Some of them had businesses there for 20 years, whatever the case might be. And I went out of my way to schedule a one-on-one appointment with those particular people and go to their office, sit down, chat with them, ask them about the community, ask them about their work. And again, this person may never, ever work with me. But my goodness, what we got done, we not only knew each other better, but if something came up along the way that I could do, or something came up along the way that he could do, I think of one that I've mentioned before in this group, a man that had a big insurance company. Well, not big. It was him and one gal in the office, but it was extremely well known in business insurance, and he had almost everybody's business insurance in the whole town. But so if an insurance thing came up, because I worked with a lot of new businesses, I would send them to him. And if he saw something that was coming along the line that was within my ability, he would send the business to me. Now, I never worked with him directly, ever. But boy, what a nice relationship that was. And that was because I'd schedule a one-on-one meeting with him directly. Never forget that is absolutely one of the best ways to do it. After you find those that you know are, if you will, community influencers, people that you know can not only benefit you, but you can benefit them along the way as well. Asking connections for introductions or acting as a mentor. That's very, very powerful as well. If you know something that's, I don't care what it is, if it's a young person that's coming up and your expertise is, maybe you used to be in a certain business, or you used to be involved in this particular type of activity, and you see a person, not even a young person, but a person that's also headed that direction, that offer the help. Uh, I guess that's how Anthony and I got together. I think, Anthony, right? It's kind of like, okay, if you got something going on, give me a shout. We'll talk about it. I don't know if I can help you or not, but we'll chat and see what comes out of it.
That's right.
And so that's important for people. And you never know when that's really going to make a big difference, sharing your knowledge with someone along the way. So socializing outside of work, having lunch with people that's not normally in your inner friend circle, because people, create cliques almost immediately, and you have to be aware of that. Even in a chamber, you've got your cliques, but strangely enough, it's somewhat easier. Sometimes it's easy to break into those cliques in the chamber. Outside the chamber, totally different story. It's a little difficult in a community. It's depending on the size of the community to break into that echelon of people who've known each other in the business world out there in the community for 20 years. And they go, well, who's this new kid on the block? I'm not sure we want him in our circle. Well, that still doesn't mean you can't learn from them and bring them into your circle. Whether you get in their circle or not, beyond the point. And referring a person to someone else, being a connector. Wow, this is a lesson we learned from a person that was on 3 weeks ago, I guess, Greg Douglas. These are stories that we tell over and over again, but they're worth retelling. He made it a point, in order to grow within his Chamber of Commerce, to always introduce someone to someone else. And when he was in a networking session, he'd talk with a guy for a little while, then he would look around and take that guy over and introduce him to somebody else. Now, Doug said, well, I was early in my chamber business then, but everybody wore a name tag. So after I talked to Bob here, I'd take him over and introduce him to Jim over here. And even though I might not know Jim very well, I still had made a connection, and it opened up a conversation between not only the two people, but myself as well. So being a connector is a very, very powerful thing. Building the right network is key to leading effectively, getting results, and developing your business. It's a very, very powerful thing. Have you, Judith, have you experienced any of this as far as networking? I know you have, because you do so much networking within the business as well. What do you find is the strongest thing here? What's a takeaway just from this short part of the presentation?
You mean, what do I think is a takeaway from what you presented so far, or did you want to add something?
As far as you're either volunteering or you're networking.
My experience is a little bit different because it wasn't. I started out at 22 with my own company, because I just didn't want to work for anybody else, and I was bored with what I was doing. So I formed the group of 7, the Secret 7, and we were 7 very accomplished, I suppose you'd call administrative assistants or executive assistants. And we were all bilingual. We all had the skills, and I made sure that we were all top secret, government cleared. And that was important, because at that time, Ottawa was just really pushing the bilingual card, and it wasn't going over well. And at 22, I had 10 people in my network. That's when I started. And when I was 25, I had 2 Rolodexers. One was Movers and Shakers, and I had 11,400 people in that Rolodex. And then I had contacts. There were over 60,000 people in my contacts.
Now, were these all people that you had met personally, or just been referred?
Yes.
Wow. Met personally.
Met personally.
Goodness gracious.
So, and in my prime, I certainly can't do it now, but at the time, just as Carl was saying, you go to an event and you come home and you make, let's say that my first assignment that I managed to pick up was putting on an event. It was all event management mostly, for the British High Consulate. So when I went to that, I scheduled the event, worked it, and then I went and attended and made sure that I met everyone. And then when I would go home, I would take out my index cards, which I still use, because they don't go offline. And so I would write their name, anything I knew about them. What did they wear? What did they drink? Who did I introduce them to? What did they tell me about themselves? Were they a wallflower? Because like they had two categories. Were they a wallflower or were they an innovator? And if they were an innovator, who were they associating with? Who did I introduce the wallflowers to? So at the end of the night, I could go home and easily make up 500 Rolodex cards at the end of an evening. I'd be lucky to make 2 up now. But at the time, I was in that place that I could do all that. So I took advantage of it. So yes, I would have had a Rolodex with that information on everyone that I have mentioned. And you got to remember that the Governor General's Summer Garden Party was a 6-month event with 25,000 people.
Were you in charge of that due to your networking?
Yes, that was a job I picked up with the Governor General Jules Leger and his wife. It didn't hurt that I started off from Center Block, West Block in Parliament Hill. And from there I went to the British High Commission, and I went to other embassies. It was all embassy work, very interesting stuff, because a lot of them also didn't have a counterpart to take to an event. So not only would I plan the event, but I might be the female that he's introducing because he hasn't brought anyone from his African country or whatever. It's just not in the budget or whatever. So I lucked out. I hit gold and I lucked out.
Sounds like you had a plan, though. You didn't luck out. Luck is good planning.
Well, yeah, I mean, but I did learn a lot about networking, and I think being positive and having a smile is one of the biggest things. And I know that sounds silly, but you'd be amazed when you go into a place and there's somebody half drunk over in the corner who you say hello and he's got a big sob story. He's not networking very effectively at all. Not going on my Rolodex card. There wasn't social media to leverage back then at that time. But I think the most important thing that I took away from all of it was find a reason to follow up.
Yes, very important.
That for me was one of the game changers. So that's what I have to contribute.
All right. Well, as you can see, we learn more and more about our associates in the group, don't we? I don't know anybody's walked in those shoes. I certainly haven't. But here's a lady who's walked in the high government places with a full security clearance. Now, I couldn't pass a security clearance. I don't know if anybody else in here could, but I couldn't. That's for sure.
Well, can I brag for a moment?
Uh-oh.
My son is active military, and he's got top secret clearance with SCI.
Wow, that's a big deal. That's a really big deal. Yeah, congratulations, Carl.
Thanks. You know what that is, Judith?
SCI?
Yeah.
I could guess. Tell me.
Well, it has to do with what they call special compartmentalization in the process for the type of work that he does.
When oh gosh, I'm trying to think. There was an event in Vancouver at the 5 Sales. It wasn't Pan Am Games or something. It was something. It was a summit. Everybody's having a summit every now and again. And United States was taking up the one hotel. Like that was their place. And then the Canadians had the 5 Sales Canada place. But I do remember hearing, I'm sure it was CSI, did you say? Or SCI?
SCI, yep.
SCI. Because I'm sure that would have been involved at some level there.
Or if anybody needs some top security clearance contacts, then Judith will provide part of her Rolodex and let you get inside. They might need some marketing, especially if they're older and they've just stepped out of the service. Who knows what may happen? Thank you, Judith. I appreciate it, my dear. Judith is always special and always right on top of things as we talk about any topic. As a matter of fact, I appreciate her like crazy. So, all right,
Thanks.
now let's talk about there are myths in network marketing too, and by that I mean people really sometimes don't understand what it's about. Now, I don't know of anybody that can collect 60,000 contacts, but I think that might be a Guinness World Record as far as one person collecting that many contacts. But the myths are pretty straightforward. And one myth is networking groups and doing networking, that's for extroverts. I don't really feel comfortable in a large crowd. And, extroverts are the ones that go to those things. And they like to buddy up with each other and show off and do their thing and so forth. Well, that's a furthest thing in the world from the truth. There are all kinds of people at networking events. As mentioned, there might be a wallflower. Well, if there's a wallflower in the group, go over and introduce yourself. That's the way to handle that. Take them out of their wallflower stage. And then on the other side, if there are people who are maybe standing around and in a group and you can tell there's not much going on. They're just kind of standing there just because they don't have any place to go or anybody else to talk to. Then, yeah, go over and talk to them because they certainly may not be extroverts, but the meeting is never all made up of extroverts, ever. I don't care what group you go to. Doesn't matter. There's certainly extroverts there. There are introverts there. There are influencers there, and et cetera. But that's a myth that you can forget right now. It's not all for extroverts. Another one is you only do that when all the real work is done. Well, guess what? Networking is part of your real work. If you don't make it part and scheduled as part of your real work, then you are missing what did it say earlier in the numbers? 75% of your ability in your business is being just lopped off. You're walking right over money, and you might as well just kind of just open the toilet and dump it in there because you just don't have a clue that this is real work. So it's done when all the real work is done, obviously not in the process. Any comments in that regard? Because everybody's seen this before. They've seen this. Peter, you've seen this kind of excuse before. What do you think about this? Peter, you there? Hello, Peter.
Stupid unmute.
Yeah, you got to do that, Peter. You got to do that first.
So, yeah, networking is a relatively simple but very confusing concept all at the same time. It's really about laying the groundwork for relationships, and some relationships move forward and some don't, and sometimes people take them too personally and sometimes not personally enough, and that makes everyone network a little differently.
Right. And in your impression, though, do you think people look at networking as like a secondary sport?
So it depends on the quality of the groups that you attend. So if you go to a group where most people take it seriously, then it's easier to take it seriously. A great example is that if you go to an event that they call a networking group, and the majority of the people there are, and I'm using air quotes that you can't see on my camera right now, home-based businesses, then most of the people there are in fact part-time at their business and therefore part-time at networking. But if you go to an event where people are being paid to be there, they're getting paid by the hour or salary or things like that, then they generally take it very serious. So sometimes the quality of the people at an event affects your interpretation. And if your only experience is the former with those groups of part-time people, then it becomes very difficult to take it seriously yourself. and that kind of leads you down that path. If you talk to people and they're, the first three people you talk to at an event, all they care about is drinking beer and that's all they're talking about. It's really hard to take the event serious. The trick is to keep moving on until you find other people that are serious as well.
Good point. Yes, very good point. And that's almost always the case. Each networking experience is different. And the more you attend, the more you understand how to deal with each different type of experience. Now, Rick, what do you think as far as networking and the word done after the real work is done? What's your opinion, Rick, on that?
Well, I don't think the work is ever done, from a standpoint of you go to a network meeting and your job is done by any means. The connections that you make and the friends that you build and the people, not only members of a chamber if we're involved in a chamber, but the executives are a great resource to get them believing in you and your product, your sincerity, and your willingness to help people, first and foremost over money, I think is a tremendous asset. And both of the chambers that I'm working with, I have such a wonderful relationship with the executive director, and one is called the president, that I'm now getting referrals, not only from members within their own chambers, but I'm in an outreach program where I'm being introduced to other chamber executive presidents and executive directors. So I've got coming up a lot of my plate that you most of all and Scott know about this, but I'm in for a lot of work, and it's a wonderful feeling and position to be in. But again, you got to put the client's interest above and beyond any financial rewards before you can ever expect to see them.
And that builds your network as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, another myth is it's all about politics and getting ahead. In other words, only the people that want to show their feathers, so to speak, and want to go out and politic their business or their bank or their insurance company, or in some cases, some of the guys are itching to become on the board for the city or something like that, get into government. And getting ahead, yeah, okay, well, I can see it. Saying it's all about that is not necessarily true at all, but it certainly has something to do with it. But the myth of it being all about politics and getting ahead is simply not the case. There are too many examples of people who have provided assistance to others without expecting anything in return, have gotten ahead anyway, if not even more successfully. And as it goes to politics, let's be honest with one another. There is politics in everything you do. You can't walk into an office. You can't walk into a restaurant. If you knew the politics of a restaurant going on behind the scenes, it is massive. It's who's going to get the best wait table, who's going to get this and what. Oh, it goes on forever and ever. And those of you who work with restaurants know exactly what I'm talking about. So even in those environments, there's politics. So it's something you live with, you learn to overlook, and you certainly don't let it affect how you feel about networking. Sharnette, do you have anything? Go ahead.
Hi, Chris, could I say something there?
Yes, please.
Something that I just really firmly believe in, because it propelled me at a time when I needed it. And that maybe it's easier in Canada or whatever, but under no circumstances ever do I show any interest in politics or religion. I don't lobby for anybody. I'm not a card-carrying liberal, conservative, Green Party, anything. Never will be. But growing up and working in Parliament and for all these people, you realize that uh, I might have been in the Shark Tank for the liberal vote for the province, but I wasn't a card carrying liberal. And when I left, nobody knew what I was up to either, because the second that the tables turn and somebody else is in party, your job is history, and all your connections and your networking, it's all gone to hell in handbasket for the most part. And I just learned that really early on, that I don't have. It is hard. It's so hard to keep those cards so close to yourself and not show them. But
So
it just depends what you're doing.
Yeah, what you're saying basically is it's not all about politics, and you should know that you should not bring politics to the networking group.
Yeah, politics or religion, actually.
Well,
I know.
Religion and politics, or you're just talking about politics?
No, either one. Either one are just acid.
Oh, I can't pass up this chance. Bob, would you share your story about your most recent website? Speaking of politics.
My most recent website.
Speaking of politics.
You have to refresh my memory. My most recent
Republican Party.
Yeah. Okay, so I got. It's not actually a website; it's a proposal, but I guess it's going forward. So, I got approached by a local women's group with a party affiliation. They wanted a website done up. I guess they've had one in the past, and for whatever reason, it fell by the wayside, or got dropped, or whatever the case may be. So, it's actually a contact that I had through the chamber, a past president. So we had a relationship from previous work. She's actually the one who contracted with me to redo the chamber's website a couple years ago. She moved on. She's active politically. They have a need for a website. Got a proposal out to them. And then after the proposal was delivered, I got asked for my party affiliation, which has nothing to do with my proposal or what I do. So I was clear about drawing the line between the two. I think that's very important for the reasons Judith just elaborated on. If you're going to make a political bent a part of your digital marketing services, you're probably not long for this business, because there's clear lines drawn, and people are very passionate about it to an irrational level even. So you don't want to be mixing those for that reason. So needless to say, I just made clear that I keep those separate, and that I didn't say outright that the question was inappropriate, but I implied such, and the response I got was, well, it was just a question. I was perfectly happy to walk away from that proposal, that project. It's still out there. Actually, yesterday, I think it kind of got a formal approval to move forward with it. So we'll charge ahead and get that done for them, get them on their way. But yeah, it keeps the two separate. That's just a disaster in the making.
The only reason I wanted to, when it was brought up, talk about politics, because politics in the networking area, it's going to come up from time to time. But as Judith said, parties are going to change, guys. And situations are going to change. So keep yourself in a neutral zone when it comes to your business and your networking activities. That is an extremely, extremely good advice from anyone that's done it long enough. So we probably played that one too long, but it certainly is important to remember. The other myth is it's insincere and manipulative. So insincere, why? You go in, you're there certainly to meet people. The insincerity can come if a person goes in there for purposes other than adding value or helping the other people in the room as much as he wants to be helped or gain himself. Now, yeah, there's insincerity in sales too. There's insincerity in product development too. There's insincerity in the development of medications. I mean, we can go down the list, but it's not an insecure location. for 90% of the people. And as far as manipulating people, what's that word?
Tough word.
Yeah, good. Excuse me, right? As far as that, I don't see manipulation. I see a joint effort to get to know one another and to share in business. No manipulation involved. Uh, and if anyone feels that way, they're approaching it incorrectly. Again, not from a giving side, but from a taking side. So yeah, you can manipulate somebody in a group and in a networking group if your only goal is to take advantage of them. Sure, you can do that. It's like the old saying: you can sell with integrity, or you can sell without integrity. You can sell both ways, but if you sell without integrity, then your base is going to crumble fairly quickly. People are going to know. People are going to sense it. People are going to see it, and you do not have a long-term, deep-rooted business. All right. Let's see, Shernette, I haven't called on you yet. What do you see as far as networking? I know you're a very outgoing kind of person. Are you there? Yeah.
I am here. I'm getting out of the room.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff that
I
a
know
lot
that.
of machine.
Yeah. Have you been able to follow along in the process nonetheless?
I am, and I'm listening to everyone. Everybody has some good advice and everything else. But networking is just like this weekend. I am super excited because almost 3 years ago, I started my online boutique, and I was able to go to the Women's Expo here in Atlanta, Georgia, and I was able to connect with some wonderful business-like people like myself that was into fashion. I know I'm a little bit different from most of you guys. That I'm fairly trying to get into the local business, local marketing, trying to help local business because, like myself, because I too myself need some help in learning how to market, learning how to put myself out there. I'm a little bit shy, even though I speak to you guys, but I'm getting a little more comfortable doing so. But believe it or not, you wouldn't think, but I'm very shy. But you do have to network, and that's like my biggest part of my business is that I have formed relationship with people over the years that they know exactly who to come to get exactly what they need. And I'm blessed to have that because when you start your business, I feel like my family or my friends should support me, but what I'm understanding going through this journey, that's not it. So you need to form your own relationship with people and be able to help them. And once you help them, whatever, you'll be amazed how many more doors will open up for you. And that's been my blessing. Just like I've literally I've I've decided to give my resignation to my job and just was like, you know what, I am done. I'm not serving anybody else but myself. I'm gonna live in my own truth, and I was able to be okay with that. I was like scared, but I was like, but as soon as I was finished writing it and I said exactly what I needed to say, I was fine. It was like a relief, and now I'm able to now go ahead and build my own dream instead of building others and everything else. So I feel like it's very, very, very important. And it's also important for me to be able to learn different skill set. And it's also for me, I need to open up a little bit more and, be able to form a relationship with people. But I'm still scared because I don't know how people will take me just because of, who I am or what I am or, it's just different. We have different opinions about different things. And I'm hoping that, it'll be okay to be able to have a relationship, and respect each other. So I'm not sure if that covers it, but
No,
that's
no,
basically
you're
how I absolutely live. Is all about, I'm a people person. I'm more person when you meet me in person. I'm like, oh my God, I know her for years. That's me. I've always learned that. But, so I'm trying to get out of my shell a little bit, a little
well,
bit.
you're finding in your business with the Atlanta situation. You're getting your networking even stronger. So keep up the good
Yes.
work and go to a different hairdresser, would you? Okay. All right.
Oh, no. That's just, I'm telling you. It's a wig.
You
Oh,
guys
yeah,
have
guys,
no
I'm
idea.
wearing a red
She sent me a
head.
picture today, and she had red hair today, so I didn't know about that. Okay. All right.
Judy, check my Facebook page. You see it.
Yeah, right. All right. And the final myth here is it's all about how many contacts you have. Well, we have the Guinness Book of World Records on our session right now, but it's not really how many, it's the quality of those contacts. Certainly, it helps to have a number, but even if you had, let's use an example, 500 in your networking binoculars and scope, there may be only 50 to 100 of those that you actually stay in touch with in one form or another. And so it boils down to the quality of that particular contact that you have. Has nothing at all to do with the numbers. That is something that I've found. Scott, what do you think about that as far as it's not about how many you have? Scott, are you with us here?
I am. I was trying to unmute myself. About the only thing I could kind of have going through my head as you guys were all talking was keeping things extremely simple. When Willie Loman was asked why he robbed banks, he said, "Because that's where the money is." And if I'm going to want to be able to effectively network, the chamber is the place that is gathering these people together. And then when they're gracious enough to group people together that I can go out and mingle with, and I've, in my sales career, have always looked at it. The reason I've been able to do it is because I don't look at it the way everybody else does. I don't look at it as I'm trying, what am I going to get out from, what am I going to get from other people? And of course, that's going to create a conflict inside of me, and then I won't want to go do it. But I've always looked at it like if I've got a solution to other people's problems, then they'll be grateful if we can work something out and I can help them. The other thing that I was kind of thinking about as you guys were all talking and I was listening, was that as AI, artificial intelligence, is rearranging our world, the importance of what we are doing, which is working to be able to help the local businesses, as AI is having all of these people have these types of jobs that they have been used to. As the world is changing, the need for the small business to survive the onslaught of Amazon taking over the world, the small business guys need the local marketing guy more than they have ever needed them. And what we all need to do is hone our people skills, because it's another thing that I've learned in my experience, that the business that I'm really in doesn't really matter what product or service that I'm looking to try to help other people with, but it all boils down to I'm in the people business. And if I don't hone on a daily basis and work on sharpening my tool, being able to effectively communicate with other people, then I'm not going to be very effective, because it all boils down to relationships and building bridges with other people and solving their problems. And again, I can't stress enough, in the future, the way the world is getting itself reorganized right now, the way that we've seen things work in the past are not going to be effective in the new digital world, where AI is beginning to dominate things. And my brother happens to be a truck driver, and I watched a 60 Minutes report about a week and a half ago. And according to the way that they're trying to get the trucks to drive now, with computers, 25% of all truck drivers, I think it said by 2025, will be out of work. Well, all of these people are going to have to be trying to do something. And it is a smart move in my mind for every person out there to try to develop a multiple stream of income of some sort. And the skills that we're learning, being able to help small businesses, the local business guy, digitally, online, we're making ourselves incredibly invaluable if we can take advantage of what is truly going on and get really good at the things that it takes to survive in the way things are getting reorganized.
Okay, I couldn't agree more, because we are a changing world right now. Thank you,
Yep.
Scott. I appreciate it, buddy.
Yep.
Now, I put up there, and this is no myth. There are a lot of people who are putting off attending networking type meetings. That's no myth about that, because I hear it all the time. Partially out of the fear of being with a large group, or not knowing what to say or how to introduce yourself. Well, those are things that are overcome by time, but also there's some training available. For those of you who have not seen one of the trainings we have with Peter, as a matter of fact, who's online with us here, I think, still. He was very gracious to do actually 2 weeks of training on what to say when you're asked, what do you do? And that's what everybody's going to ask you in a meeting. When you go to a networking meeting, what do you do? Well, having that answer down to the point that it becomes then a brief answer that elicits, if you will, a question back, so they just don't say, oh, that's interesting. Then you're going to learn to network a whole lot more smoothly. You're going to be more comfortable, and you'll find yourself wanting to go to networking events in the process. The one thing that I know that, Peter, are you still on right now? Let's see.
Looks
Maybe.
like
Peter have to go. Peter, you on, buddy? No, I think he had to get off. Okay. I know that Peter went to a networking event about 2 weeks ago, and it was something he hadn't been doing a great deal of. And he decided, he'd always put it off and so forth. He decided he would go to a networking event, and went in and got to know some people. He said there were actually some interesting people. I thought it'd just be a boring event. He said, I found some interesting people. And for a first networking event, probably in months and months and months and months, he came away with 3 follow-ups and 3 potential clients. In that first time he'd been in one in ages, one time going out and deciding to get into the networking area with this group. And I was really proud of what Peter accomplished there. And what are the best ways to overcome that feeling? I'm just going to open mic it. Guys, tell me, what's the best way to overcome the feeling of like fearing going into a crowd or not knowing what to say and so forth? I'm going to leave this just as open mic right now. What are the best ways to overcome that feeling?
Know your product.
Good point. Very good point.
You can be pushed. You can be knocked off guard in any situation, life or whatever. But if you know your product, you cannot BS your way through that, and that should carry you through until you become comfortable. I did Toastmasters for 4 years, and I think the most difficult speech to write is a 3-minute speech. You can get anybody to stand there and blabber on for 30 minutes. But when you're in front of a group of doctors and these are able to make a decision within minutes, you don't want to waste their time. So be prepared and know your product.
That is an extremely good point here. Just 3 days ago, I was asked to send a 3-minute video, kind of one of those who are you type videos, what have you done? And I can guarantee you it was really tough to keep it under 3 minutes. I mean,
was that for that dating service, Chris?
Oh, stop it. No, it wasn't for the dating. Goodness gracious. The wild woman speaks again. Okay.
Doesn't that sound like a Chris thing? Come on.
No, it does not. No. Okay. Any other thoughts on the best ways of overcoming that feeling?
And if you're not a person that can pick up and speak on the fly. There's a practice we use in Toastmasters called table topics. And it's just a 3 or 5 minute speech about anything from anything that you know extremely well. But you're working on presenting where you're not repeating yourself, you're not using pregnant pauses and ums and stuff like that. And I would say to a person like Sharnette that maybe you need a wing woman to go into your chamber with you to take a little focus off of you and have somebody along with you who's a little more bubbly or a little more open. When I go to chambers and I don't need the business, I love introducing new people that really need the business because I know how much it meant to me when I was a youngster in this situation. And I will never forget those first few days. I did $8,900 in gross revenue the first year I was in business. And when I got my CPA's audit in the mail, thank God it was on a Saturday because it was a $400 bill for that thing. And I would have gone down there over and dragged him over his desk for sending me a bill for 5% of my sales. That's how important money was to me at that time. So customers become the lifeline of your profession. And if you're not a person that's able to translate that, you need to go in with somebody who's a wing woman that you can go in with and start working the angles in that way until you become comfortable, at least knowing the people that you know there. I mean, if you go to a church and you've been to that church 25 times, every time you walk in, heck, you know 80% of the people, you're not uncomfortable. So you need to develop that comfort level with the chamber as well.
Hey, walking in with a wing person is actually a good idea, Carl, because it takes the pressure off you as an individual entity, and the teamwork there often works out very well. Teaming up on two of you teaming up on one person, I've done that before, and it's been fun.
My mom was a fantastic woman when it came to business. My family, aside from my own business, my family has a tax business that was started in 1931 by my great-grandmother. We have her letter of introduction, which she got hired by the IRS in 1922. She was there for 9 years. The Democrats came in, the Republicans got thrown out, of which she was a prominent one in town. But she was a widow with 2 little kids that had to feed her children and her mom that lived with her. So she left and started selling insurance and doing taxes for the farmers. From her, it went to my grandmother, from my grandmother to my mom. From my mom, it's now run by my wife and my sister. And 3 years ago, our niece came in. 5 generations of women. So I've been around strong women, decision makers all of my life, and break that ceiling stuff. That's a bunch of baloney. These are beautiful, wonderful people that I work with. But my point is that my mom had this talent of being able to find the ability to create something from nothing. And when you're at that guerrilla marketing level in your business, in your life, you are in a very interesting state of mind because your mind figures out how to deal with things that are important. And so what's important to me is I help that business guy or business gal over there get their business going better. And I feel better about myself as a person, and I develop a better relationship with that person. So it's in a self sense, I guess you could say it's self-serving, but it's not just serving me, it's serving my close-knit family. And that's what I think of these people as close-knit family that need opportunities to get the job done and to make a living at doing something.
So you're giving as much as you're taking in that situation, without a doubt.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yvonne, just a real brief one here before we close out. What do you think about how do you overcome that feeling of nervousness, or, I don't really want to go today. I think I'll go to the next one next month or whatever. How do you overcome that yourself?
Oh, she's there.
Well, I don't really, I can't answer that because I don't really have that experience. I could better address the feeling of nervousness talking to someone new when you're in that situation.
Right.
Which is just focus on the other person. I just ask them questions and draw them out and show the interest in them.
And that takes away your fear after
right
starting that.
Right.
Excellent technique as well. And it also accomplishes the purpose of getting to know that person as a future influencer along with you. Okay. All right. Thank you, Vaughn. Appreciate it.
Sure.
We're coming to the end of our masterclass here, which I think we've covered some great topics about networking. But if anyone has a question, please ask it now. I or someone in the group is jumping at the chance to answer a question. So please, anybody in the group need to ask a question at this point? Anthony, you okay over there?
Yeah, I don't think I have a specific question, but I do want to say thank you for the invite.
Oh, my pleasure. I hope you'll join us again, my man. Absolutely. Okay. All right. In that case, guys, I'll get back to the main screen, and I want to say I appreciate everyone being here today and all the participation. I think we've had good participation across the board from everyone, which makes a whole lot of difference when this goes into replay and other people listen to this. They know that there are other people within the group that are always willing to help if you just ask. And that's what they're going to see from these trainings that we do. So thanks to everybody for being here today. And I will see you hopefully next Wednesday at 3 p.m. See you guys.
Thank you, Chris.
Good. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye now.